Okay, we're going to get started since the appointed hour is here. So I want to start by welcoming you all this evening. And obviously it's a hot one out there. So a lot of people are staying cool and staying indoors, but hopefully we'll have an educational meeting tonight. We'll learn lots of things because that's the way the agenda is set up. So I wanted to start out by having the leadership team introduce themselves so that we make sure we know the members of the leadership team. And we have a new member this evening with us. Sophia Sumitomo is joining us. Her sister Lauren was here before working with us, and so she's continuing in that family tradition of helping out the community council. Great. And she's a senior at Oak Ridge High School, so she's got a lot going on, planning her future and finishing up all her AP classes and all those kinds of things. So we'll look forward to her presentation this evening. But with that, let's start over here with David. Just a brief introduction of what your role is in our leadership team.
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dave Spar. I'm retired, but still consulting as an economic development consultant, working on California Jobs First, and looking at an appointment on the Economic Development Committee for the county and assisting and representing District 1 for Supervisor John Heidel. So I'm happy to be here. I've joined a couple Zoom meetings in the past, but it's always better to be present and in front of you. Thank you.
Sophia.
Everyone, my name is Sophia Sumoto. As he said, I'm a senior at Oak Ridge High School. I am the student body vice president, and I'm here representing the El Dorado County Youth Commission. It'll be my third year this year.
For your service on the Youth Commission. I'm John Heidel, District 1 Supervisor.
I'm Cindy Munt. I'm Supervisor Heidel's assistant. I do community information and outreach for the community council.
I'm Michael Antho. I'm a deputy chief at the El Dorado Hills Fire, currently assigned full-time out of the Sheriff's Office of Emergency Services. And on the safe and healthy communities aspect, I chair kind of the public safety coordination.
John Davey, we know, is helping his daughter move into her dorm room, as I understand it, right? So college activities for John, and Kathy said she could not be here, but she provided your report, which we'll present later. So very good. And with that, we'd also like to introduce any committee or commissioners that are appointed onto the El Dorado County commissions or committees for service. So Raylene, would you go ahead and start? Share with us what you're doing.
I'm Commission on Aging for the committee, and I'm John Heidel's appointee for District 1.
Okay, Gita, you want to go ahead?
I'm also on the El Dorado County Commission on Aging as a commissioner.
Excellent. So I don't see anyone else here who's a volunteer on our committees or commissions. Do we have anybody online? I'm not seeing anybody online either. So, all right, with that, we'll close off item 1. Thank you all. Let's move on to item 2, adoption of the regular meeting agenda. Anyone on the leadership team who has any proposed changes to tonight's agenda? Seeing none.
Changes, I would move to adopt the September 9th agenda.
Okay. I'm going to adopt it by declaration, but thank
perfect.
you. That just makes it go faster, but thank you. We don't have to be that formal because we're not under the Brown Act. So that's a nice thing. So it's a little bit different than when you serve on one of our volunteer committees or commissions. But with that, we're going to move on to item 3, public comment. This is the opportunity for anyone present, either online or in the conference room here, who would like to share with us some comment, some complaint, a question, whatever it may be. We just ask that you please get a microphone that you can speak into. And I think there's one here on the podium. Is that correct, Mike? Chief? Okay, good. So because this is the way we communicate with people on Zoom, it doesn't amplify in the room, but if you don't use a microphone, people who are listening online can't hear you. So please pay attention to that. So anyone who would like to make a public comment this evening. Wow, this is going fast. Steve's going to stay quiet for now, I guess. All right. All right, so we'll move on beyond public. So we're item 4, guest speaker. It's my pleasure to welcome Bryce Lovell, our Director of Library Services, here this evening with us. And he recently, up at the county, shared with the Board of Supervisors and other attendees up there a number of significant updates, changes that are happening with our library system. And so the focus is kind of what's happening in our El Dorado Hills Library, but also all the way up the county, the other libraries, because there's a lot of good things going on. So with that, Bryce, if you'd like to do a little self-introduction about your background and, you know, where you started and so forth, that'd be certainly a pleasure.
Sure. So Bryce Lovell, Library Director for El Dorado County. Thank you for inviting me. Some of my backgrounds, I actually grew up in Palm Pines, and my first job was at the Placerville Library, putting away books. And so after that, I went to college at Humboldt State. I worked in a lot of libraries during that time, Napa County Library. I worked for Folsom Lake College. I worked for Sacramento Public Library for about 10 years. I also worked for a major online search provider. Feel free to decipher that. So libraries and also in IT. And so it's wonderful to be in my position now as library director. It's been my dream job since forever. So it's very nice to give back and be part of our library system. So I think we have a PowerPoint that we can bring up. And I envisioned some of this as a piece where I would go into our new catalog and kind of demo it out. But I think with the technology, I think my aspirations were probably exceeded some of the technological possibilities. But that's okay, I can still talk about it. And you'll notice, so that's exactly as it's supposed to be. The first slide is, can you go back real quick? Okay, so we're going to do kind of an interactive type thing real quick. So Cindy, if you could go to that. So before you do it though, so we're going to have 1 second to look at something. So Cindy, what you'll do is you'll go down a slide and then you'll just press down again because the slide after that is blank. So go ahead and go 1,000. Okay, that was even quicker than a second, but that's perfect. That is perfect. So I assume everybody was looking at the screen. Does anybody want to share what they saw? Did you see anything at all? Were you able to decipher anything? I've seen some various nods and ow. Okay, so that is excellent because that'll come into play in a second here, but less than a second and you can recognize a symbol, maybe even some text in there. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about logos. We're going to talk about branding. We're going to talk about open source online public access catalogs, which is fancier or is not as fancy as it sounds. We're also going to talk about open source integrated library systems. We can go to the next slide. And I think the top of my slide might be cut off a little bit. Let's see. But you know what? I think I remember it. So it says at the very top, it says that a logo is to be used. Its purpose is to identify. So not necessarily sell. So that's one of the reasons that you can have say an airline, and you can have a logo that maybe it doesn't have an airplane in it. So it's a symbol used to identify that builds its recognition and ultimate power over time. So the more you see it and associate it with a brand. And so some common logo design principles is one, simple, and it's more difficult than you would think to make something that's simple. Generally, it's easier to make things that are complex in certain ways with messaging. So simple, memorable, timeless, scalable, and versatile. As technology continues to change, with our previous logo, and this is what stemmed some of these conversations that ultimately put us in a position to explore changing it and ultimately changing our logo. You look at things like even the internet over the past 20 or so years, and there's a little tiny symbol at the top of your web page, at the top of a web page in a web browser. It used to be 16 by 16 pixels, so about the size of your fingernail on the screen, your pinky. And now it's about 32 by 32. Anyways, very, very small. So when you're looking at logos, is it scalable? Does it work when it's shrunk down to that size? And does it work when you're traveling 70 miles or 65 miles an hour down the highway, and there's a billboard that's the same thing. You recognize it in that instant. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. And so these are some examples of our new logo in various what's called lockups. So you have a horizontal and also a vertical application. You have what's called a medallion on the upper right side. So it's circular, so that works well for avatars on the web and that sort of thing. It works on bags, stickers. You see smaller examples of the owl in that favicon setting that I had mentioned. It works in black and white. We also have different variations to where it can be put on a dark background, works great on a light background. And so these are some things to be considered as technology continues to change. And we can go ahead and go to the next slide. And we took it a step further than just the logo, because you have that symbol, but then you have all the questions of how do you put it on certain things? What's the spacing around it? What about when you have partner logos on things? What if you need another color involved with just the main color and with our branding, so a secondary color? What fonts do you use? And so all these questions, and ultimately this process took about 9 months, and we worked with various designers. We got customer feedback, we got feedback from our stakeholders, and so each step along the way, we're like, okay, are we closer? There's a lot of processes involved with reflecting and then ultimately choosing a final design. And so this is a sneak peek to our internal brand, our identity manual. And we can go a little faster through this piece. I just want to kind of give, and that, let's see, so that's still part of the PowerPoint. Would you bring up the web browser with that PDF form? So I think it opened in Chrome, or I mean in Edge earlier. And this will be, here we go. And if you could scroll to the top of that document, perfect. And let's go ahead and go down to the next page. I think you might be able to just press the down arrow if we're lucky. Okay. Okay. And so if you go up one, here we go. So it's a living document. That's okay, that's perfect. And then it evolves in unison with El Dorado County Library. If you go down a page, and so you see the table of contents there. We talk about the fonts, imagery, logo, colors, and looking at the psychology behind certain colors. It's why we kept the blue and then went with a slightly darker shade of blue. And I'll talk more about that in a second. And go next page, please. And so you'll see our mission and our vision statement, but also there's a logo piece there. So through imagery and color, our logo symbolizes wisdom, knowledge, trust, reliability, and stability. So there's a lot behind that, that minimal, recognizable design. And then next page. And we can kind of scroll, or we can go through these maybe every second or so. And so this just shows the different lockups and how they're utilized and the spacing, the logo construction, and keep going. Perfect, and we can stop there. And so it also talks about what not to do. Don't change it, because that can potentially jeopardize the logo's integrity as people recognize it and the connection's built over time. Next page. Logo variation, so those different lockups I was talking about. And go on. Talks about the favicon piece and color, so secondary colors. So this is important because in a second, this relates directly to our library catalog and the user interface and how people go about searching and finding information, and how clean and intuitive it is to reserve items and those types of things. Next page. Gradients, next page. It also goes into our fonts, and you can keep going. And talks about imagery. So down the line, we'll likely desaturate images. There's all sorts of things to consider around the images to create a certain type of mood or feel, and that goes within the whole branding type of sphere. And next page. And that's just a continuation, so you can keep going. And these are some mock-ups of some of the branding items and how it looks on various social media and merchandise. And you can keep going. We're almost to the end here. And so that's a peek at that internal document, kind of give a better understanding of a lot of things that went into not only the logo, but the branding for the library overall. And then we can pop back into that PowerPoint. Yeah, that's perfect. And so this is our website with a new logo. You can see that, and we changed it in a very minimal fashion. So our customers, it's still, it's very similar to the other website, just with a few tech updates here and there. We can go to the next slide. Okay, and so this is a screenshot of our brand new catalog. That's where folks can search for items. This is a completely open source system, which means that compared to our previous system and other systems that were proprietary, this system, so the actual code we can modify. So there's full flexibility there. So it's free as in freedom. It's not a closed system. And that gives us absolute flexibility. We can do whatever we want with this product, with this system over time. We're not bound to any kind of proprietary pricing or limitations in design. We can jump to the next slide. And I had initially thought that I was going to jump in and give a mini kind of tutorial on the system itself, but for the sake of technology offerings, I think that was a bit aspirational. So I'll just highlight a few things. So in the future, so we're working on this piece. We're going to, so let's say you reserve a book and it's ready for pickup. You will get a notification if you opt in by text. So that's something that we hope to offer to our customers. We also are working with the auditor's office to accept digital payments. So say your dog chews on a library book and you got to replace it, you'd be able to pay digitally, even remotely. So just at your house through this system. With the colors used, so you'll see some of the, you'll see a book there, and then you'll see some search results, or you'll see a list of locations that have that specific item. So it uses a lighter blue. If this was the actual catalog, we would scroll down and you would see author bio, you would see recommended reads, similar reads, you would see lists that have been curated by librarians. Even some of our staff were able to do that. You would see the reading level for the book, so Lexile and other scoring methods that schools use, because a lot of kids come in and they're looking for a book at this level because it's required reading. You would also see citations at the bottom. So when people are putting together different types of papers and they need to cite their sources. So those are already built in. So you can just copy and paste them depending on the format, if it's Chicago or MLA or whatever it might be. The system, there's a lot of cool features where you can create a nickname for your card. So you don't have to remember your card number by default, we've enabled auto renewals. So when you check out an item, it'll auto renew for you up to 3 times as occurs. You're also able to create lists. You can share on social media. It's built in. You can rate items. There's a ton of features that are just there. Some of them are just kind of classic features, and other things are a bit more cutting edge. But we have full flexibility with everything that we offer, which is great for our customers. Next slide. And so the previous slide with what you were looking at, that's a product called Aspen. And what drives that product is something, and that, so that Aspen product and what you saw previously is an example of an online public access catalog. It's fancy for where you go to search for books and other items. But what drives that on the back end is something called Koha, which is also an open source product. And you see on the slide there, so it's a fully featured, scalable library management system. And the development is sponsored by libraries of varying types and sizes, volunteers and support companies worldwide. So this came to be, Koha, I think it was around 1999 that folks started building it. And so after all these years of development, it's a polished product now, where early adopters, if it was 2000, 2001, it would have been very experimental. But there's developers from all over the world and libraries from all over the world that contribute code. At its heart, it mirrors a lot of library philosophy, where it's open and accessible. We can go to the next slide. Another benefit of this system, maybe you've heard in the news, you hear about ransomware, and some libraries are trying to recover from ransomware. So Toronto Public Library, Seattle Public Library, there's others. It's basically when you have someone that is malicious that will go into the system and they'll encrypt your data, and then they'll ask for money for them to decrypt everything and get it back to you. So systems have seen this, and it's increasing in its frequency. Our system is no longer hosted on site. This new system is in the cloud, and it's on virtual machines, which means that the environments are locked down to a degree where it has even more layers of prevention built into the architecture of the system. It would be very difficult to hold our data hostage, as you will. And then the company that we host with, they do backups twice a day. So even if something odd did happen, we would be able to restore that. So by design, by default, it's a much safer system. And we can go to the next slide. This is simply a screenshot of when we went out to the for the bid process. The history of our system. So we have that proprietary product that we had used for probably close to 20 years, and we were about to get it was about to renew again for a 5-year term. And so looking at the costs and a bunch of the other factors and wanting to have flexibility, the library went to the board of supervisors, asked for approval. We modified a master agreement and then got permission to go out to bid. So looking at the proprietary system, if we were to be in the cloud, a lot of those systems cost about, depending on the size of your library, about $120,000 a year. With the open source system and being in the cloud, it brings it down to under $40,000. We're below $35,000 for our system. So there's a substantial cost savings. Next slide. This is a screenshot of what that ILS, that integrated library system, the software that staff are using. None of this would be possible without our just stellar library team. They've been flexible. They've jumped in to learn new things. Everybody's been very positive about the system, and we haven't had any, knock on wood, we haven't had any hiccups with the new system. And it's the team has really made all these processes. I mean, this took 1.5 years to implement, and they've been fantastic. I think a lot of, even for larger library systems or other systems, it would have been a more difficult thing to implement this, but it's been very, very smooth for El Dorado County Library. And then next slide. So another really cool thing about our integrated library system and it being open source is that if we see an opportunity to better serve our customers with technology, so if there's something there, it's like, well, I wish we had this module. I wish we could develop this piece. We can. And so we can suggest it. There's a crowdsourcing feature through our hosting company. So for example, if we come up with something and then say our friends in the library put $500 towards the development of that, it could be that Roseville Public Library also puts $500 towards it. It could be that a library in Ohio puts $2,000 towards it. So you have this crowd sourcing function where you can build a better product over time, and you have more flexibility to build over time in a communal type way. And next slide. And so some of the different products. So we have Aspen, which is our catalog where you search for things. We have Koha, which is the back end of everything, the nuts and bolts of our of the system that the staff use. And we've got our new logo up there. We have so part of that Aspen catalog, we also have an app. It's called Aspen Lita, and that's available for Android and Apple. And then our hosting company that secures everything, and they also offer support. That's something called Bywater. So I know that's a lot, but we've got a new logo, new branding, new catalog, super easy to use, substantial cost savings, and we hope to use that cost savings in the future to ultimately become a fine-free library system. So questions or comments? Thank you.
Go ahead. Pat, go ahead. Sorry. Do you have a microphone? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Pat Kriz. I've been using my Nook reader for about 5 years, and I hardly ever go into the library, but I always try and borrow books. And it's getting harder and harder and harder to get a book through the borrowing function. And I've found that it's now taking 3 to 5 to even 6 months when I put my name on a list. And it's through something called Northern something something services that comes up on my screen. So I got my library card locally, but what can I do to get access to more books to borrow? Because 9 times out of 10, they don't have it. And when they do have it, I can't get it. And where is the system breaking down? Is it the local library that's not getting enough funding to buy the electronic version of the book I want to read? Or is it the system not having enough electronic book titles to be able to loan them? Or what's going on? Because it used to be a whole lot easier.
Great question. There's a few different angles. So one is the Nook. With offerings, the Nook, there's a lot more offerings now for Kindle devices or downloading an Android app or an Apple app to your phone or your tablet. So that might be one piece of it. When you mentioned it's probably NorthNet.
NorthNet. That's it.
Libraries go. So that's a consortium where we purchase certain book packages with other libraries throughout Northern California, and then some of those are shared. So it increases the pool of offerings as far as books. So we have, so with ebooks in particular, so we have something called Libby.
I read Libby.
And so Libby is kind of, that's the most popular kind of app or service
Right.
for a lot of books and digital audio. We also just recently infused the collection with something called Palace. And Palace is a statewide ebooks platform, kind of mirrors the NorthNet and Libraries to Go offerings, but it's more robust. So we just loaded all that content into our new catalog. So that might be another avenue to explore. Now you mentioned with some items not being available, we try to keep up on the hold queues. So there's a certain number of people waiting for an item, then we try to purchase more of them. Some of a challenge is that these are digital items and these are artificial queues or artificial limitations put enforced by the publisher. So even though it's a digital item, so you can share that all you like, and it's not going to change. It's not like a book that's going to wear out over time. And so with the pricing points and the access, so a lot of that comes from the publisher side. So kind of behind the architecture of everything, that's a challenge just in the library world and publishing world. But I would suggest that you take a peek at Libby again, and then also Palace. There's a lot of items that are in the catalog now from Palace.
So do I take my Nook down to the library and have the librarian help me load those programs?
So you can, you can stop by any library location and just ask your question at the front desk. You can also call us. It's been a while since I worked with a Nook, so I don't know off the top of my head, but you can even call and they give you a better idea of kind of some of the options. You can share your specific Nook version and all of that. So that might be.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
What else? Yes.
First of all, on a slightly humorous note, I'm a member of Toastmasters, so I really enjoy your gestures there. I mean, you really brought the story to life, and so thank you for that. Okay. I do have a question about checking out books or renewing books, because I did that today by calling the El Dorado Hills Library. And I'm just wondering if that can be done on this website, for lack of a better term, that you mentioned. And I think I did try to go on to that website, but it didn't really work for me. Maybe it will, you know. So I'm just wondering if that's possible with this system to check out a book and or renew a book. Thank you.
Yes, so you can reserve items, you can make lists of books, you can renew books, and with how it's set up in the new system, it will auto renew for you as a courtesy up to 3 times, as long as the book is not on, as long as someone else hasn't put in a hold request for it. So if they put in a hold request, then it would trigger that. But yes, you're able to renew through the system. Some folks have had trouble logging into the system, or not trouble, but it threw them off because everybody's password is changed. Everything was reset as a security precaution, and so now it'll be the first 4 letters of your last name. And then once you log in, you can change that. And it's something I really enjoy because there's so many numbers in life and passwords and things to remember is that you can create a nickname for your card. So you don't have to put in the 2, 1, you know, the long number. It can be whatever you like.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Yeah, Steve.
Your name is Bryce, correct?
Correct.
I'm Steve Ferry, and I am on some boards and membership of various things, particularly taxpayers of El Dorado County. I'm part of the Serrano Senior Men's Reading Group up there that's donated quite a bit of money to your local library here in El Dorado Hills. And I'm interested in what's going on. I have about 4 questions, if you don't mind, and we'll just start with the first one.
Sure.
What logo did you replace? You showed us your new logo, but you never showed us what you replaced.
Yes. So I don't know if we can bring that. Well, let's see. How do we? I mean, if you do an image search on Google, so El Dorado County Library, we might be able to find the old one. So,
Bryce, while they're doing that, let me ask you another
Yeah.
question.
uh,
What was the cost of the logo? The actual hard cost?
Great question. So I can give you approximate numbers. I can give you a brief overview of some things that happened in the background if you want.
Let me back up. I bought a logo back in 1983 for $5,000. I understand they cost money, so just,
So you're gonna be impressed. So, because what we did is we first went on a design platform, and we held a contest. It was closed, it was used to generate ideas. And ultimately that process, a lot of great ideas were generated. It was more of an exploratory type thing. And that ended up costing us, I think, just under $1,000. And then as we continued to collect feedback and learn more about logos in general and all that, we eventually secured, so we knew we wanted an owl. And then we were able to connect with a designer that had the owl piece, and then they modified it to where there's a book underneath instead of a branch. And that ultimately was a couple $100. And then with the branding guide, I think that was maybe the brand identity guide was maybe 500 or 600. So I know that those it won't add up to the cost I'm saying because there's other things involved, but I think it was around $3,000, which is, as you mentioned, anybody familiar with logo and design and working with artists, it's the steal of the century. And with what we learned with this process, if we were to go back, we could probably get it even lower. But it was very, very reasonable, and it was also the Friends of the Library, the South Lake Tahoe Friends of the Library contributed to that piece, and then also the El Dorado Hills Friends of the Library. And so part of the reason that those groups contributed is because they, compared to some of our other friends groups, they had a little more flexible spending that they were able to draw on.
so I was a member of your library commission here in the county for a couple of years. I represented District 2, which is the library in Cameron Park. And one of the things we discussed at length was maybe creating a public-private partnership for our library. One of the major reasons for that is that a public-private partnership with like Library Science Services, they take care of almost 800 libraries. We have 5 libraries. So when folks are saying, I can't get a book, I don't understand how to get the book quicker, and I'm waiting way too long. When you have 800 libraries you can drag from, you get a book very quickly. And they're sustainable, if you will. I visited the one up in Reading that had gone broke. I mean, their library was closed. And so they opened under Library Science Services. My point here is that we have more we could do for our county using a different kind of service than just changing a logo. And we need to maybe get that discussion at the Board of Supervisors, but I'm just throwing that out at you so you can kind of have an idea where some of us are coming from. I think we get a lot better service for the folks who are actually reading the books. If I may finish up here.
Dick, can I comment on
Sure,
that
please.
real quick? So part So with contracting with a company for a certain library services, it removes a lot of the flexibility and creativity that we have to best serve our patrons. For example, in my experience in libraries, I used to be in charge of the library things collection for Sacramento Public Library. And so looking at some of the community needs at certain sites, I added to the tool, the library things collection, pressure washer as kind of a pilot, a test. And we put one of those pressure washers in, and everybody wanted it because in that environment, there was a lot of patios and other things. And folks were only using pressure washers a couple times a year. So I think they're up to maybe 15. It's one of their most popular items. So by going with a company with certain things that are already on rails, you remove some of that that ability to navigate new things and build the future. I mean, one of the examples is with our integrated library system. So that is a huge cost savings, of course, but we're also we're part of a larger library community where we're constantly reviewing and building a better product.
I'm sorry, what larger library community are you part of?
Yeah, so say with for outsourcing certain things, as you mentioned, with certain libraries that have gone where companies are running certain services. So, like for example, with our integrated library system, with that software, full flexibility and control, huge cost savings. That's something that a private company can't offer. We can be more streamlined and effective and efficient if we control that system, because we can be more localized to our community and to our patrons. So if we see something that, hey, it's not really happening in a lot of other areas of California, but here's how we can better serve our community. We can, it's like we built a speedboat instead of having like an aircraft carrying going out to things. It takes longer to do things. This ebooks piece, we're continuing to build that collection. You can sometimes see certain ebooks that you might have a hugely popular author, and so it's hot, and we could have 100 copies, but it's still going to be impacted. But we're continuously reviewing and building that collection. And we look at the whole queue, and we try to use it to balance out the best, make things available. But just some other things to consider and think about with having a company with offering library services.
So last question for you.
Sure.
My last meeting with the Library Commission, we voted on accepting the American Library Association Bill of Rights, which included and was part of critical race theory, diversity, inclusion, and equity. Those are the only things that really applied to it. Went to the county, asked them to do a workshop to find out what the people of El Dorado County thought of that and whether or not they wanted us involved at the library system or any other part of the county involved in that kind of a program. We couldn't get the board to actually put that in front of us. But would you be in favor of hosting some kind of a workshop to discuss that issue? And I guess part of that question is, do you still follow the CRT DIE thing? Or have you gone back to hiring on merit and dealing with merit stuff?
So
that's my last question, John, I promise.
Okay.
So with hiring, it's a competitive process. So I think some of those pieces, our HR director would be able to better articulate and explain all of those pieces. But I can tell you that it's a competitive process with library bill of rights and some other things that ALA supports and encompasses. I guess if you boil it all down, it's about access, freedom to read, and empowering people to choose. So we've got all the books that, so we have all the books that folks like and all the books that folks don't like. we have everything. And by having that, we empower people with choice. So it's not so much sorting when things go in, but it's the customer's role to explore and sort and choose and consume what they feel like. So it's really about empowering people with choice and supporting their freedom to discover and learn and grow in whatever way they see fit.
Let me give you one other follow-up.
Yeah, come on, quick.
Oh, sorry.
You said it was the last. No, go ahead.
The books you're speaking about, in many cases, are sexuality books of one sort or another. I never wanted any books taken out of the library. That was not Steve Ferry. I didn't want that to happen, but I did want books that were inappropriate for a 5-year-old to be down at this level, to be in the children's section. I wanted them up high where people got to go, 6 foot tall and reach up. And so what is the policy now with those kind of books? Do I need to describe the books further if you don't understand what I'm saying?
So we have different sections of the libraries that it's easy for people to find what they're looking for. A lot of it is based on reading level and what I might, or what one person may deem not appropriate, another person deem appropriate. It could be that somebody's checking out a book because they don't, maybe they're not interested in that topic and they want to better prepare themselves to express their thoughts to their neighbor. It could be that they are very much they share the same views in that book. So that's a question of information relevancy. And that's another reason that we support privacy is just it ties into folks' journey of exploring information, coming to their own opinions based on their thoughts. And what may be controversial at one point in time, it could be that 6 months later it's not, it could be 10 years later it's not. So I view that as more of an information relevancy piece. But we do, one of our main priorities is to ensure a welcoming space for, build a welcoming space for everyone at the library. So welcoming spaces, collections that are up to date and varied, try to offer. So, don't know if that was what you were looking for.
Doesn't look like there's separation in terms of accessibility, height, or anything else that we're going towards, right? So it's not age appropriate by height. When we stack the books, they're all still ordered by some kind of a system, right? A library system. So they're intermixed in terms of you could have a children's book that might be next to an adult's book, or are they really separate parts of the library?
We have separate sections. So
children can't go in the adult section?
Oh, children can go in the adult section.
Okay.
So I'm speaking from the scope of just the way things are laid out. So typically we'll have a children's area and a space that is we make it as welcoming as possible for children to explore and learn and play. So we have toys and other things in that area. Typically, at a lot of our locations, we'll have a teen section. So there's a lot of items that it's more towards that reading level. And then we'll have just our regular collection. So a lot of it's based on reading level to a degree. But there's nothing that so whoever comes in and if they have a library card, we don't limit what they can check out. And from a youth point of view, we want to empower parents and caregivers. We don't. That's their choice, what they want their child to have access to. So it's, again, it's an empowering, type of piece. We have all the items, and then you choose what you want to, explore. And then for your child, you're the best person to be able to do that. So that's the philosophy behind it.
Okay, so supervision is supposed to be monitoring, that's what it amounts to, so. Whether that's an older brother or sister, or whether, somebody you have to accompany you to the library.
Well, and that's why we say, parent or caregiver. You look at, not just physical buildings and space, but also the internet, a lot of kids' phones and other things. And, so it's up to the parent to modify some of those settings. We really, it's that piece of empowering parents to regulate access of information to their children. So we don't want get into that game.
Restrict access, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Again, Bryce, thank you very much for the presentation, and we will send you, Steve, the old logo. Turns out there's no mascot or anything on there, so this is really dressed up compared to what the old one was, but periodically have to rebrand to do things different, so.
And the old one uses serif font, which is harder to read in digital environments. So that's another reason we went with the sans serif font, so it's flatter. Okay.
Very good. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to move on to supervisor communications. The first one this evening is a Costco update. The their development team was here today to meet with planning and building and also DOT. The primary discussion was around things associated with them getting restarted on an amended draft EIR. And associated with that, the current focus is on the traffic analysis to finalize what that traffic analysis is showing so they can adjust their plans to be consistent with DOT's desires for access, ingress, egress before they submit updated plans. So it seems to me like that's the right thing to do. Figure out what that traffic flow needs to be as an optimization type of tool, update your plans and then submit them. So that's why the plan submittal has been delayed a little bit to make sure that their traffic analyst and our DOT representatives agree on the configuration of the roadways adjacent to what our properties now. There's two separate parcels that Costco will be developing. So as we get in for more information on that, we'll share that. And I'm sure there will be updates as well on the planning and building department's website. So that's more happening there. Town and Country Village, the public and agency DEIR review period ends on today, September 9th. Yeah, Steve. Sorry.
I'll back you up to Costco right quick.
Okay.
CSD board, and I sit on the CSD board. So we're in the process of contemplating purchasing 41 or more acres of the old golf course. It's got a street running through the middle of it that's somebody's dream. And the street.
The line on a map is all it was, and it's been explained as
Still a line
several
on a
ways.
map, and all I want it to do is go away. So, it's gonna be real hard to pay that kind of money and have a road going through a place that was supposed to be a golf course. And it makes the value of that property rough and dirty $1.5 million, and we're paying $10 million for it. It really creates a problem. My point of telling you that is so that you can know that is a huge problem for us. It's not a little dinky one. So.
And a member of your board and DOT met out there and discussed the whole thing, and they were looking at different options in terms of routing. The last thing I knew, DOT was supposed to come back with an updated plan. So Mark was very involved with that as well. So if your board is not getting that information, yeah, I can certainly share it with you.
I guess what I'm telling you is being on the board.
Yeah.
We have to vote on this thing. Mark doesn't vote on it.
Right.
We do.
I understand.
Just like you do with your stuff. So I'm just saying, we've got a real problem from the viewpoint that if that line, that road is still in there.
The idea was the road would hug the side of the hill and come in higher on Serrano Parkway than where the line is now. There were two options. That was one of them, hug the hill, come down around so you don't get over as far into the property, basically skirt the edge of the property. The other one is to come down more closer to the highway and come in through the backside of where the establishments are down there now, Steve's Pizza and those kinds of places. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me because there's wetlands and stuff in there. And that I think would take a major amount of work and cost to do it there. But I do think it's a better configuration to skirt the hillside and come down to connect to Serrano at a higher elevation. DOT was coming up with those options. If they haven't been sharing them with you, I'll remind them they need to be reviewed. So that's, yeah, we'll follow up. Okay, Town and Country Village, as I mentioned, the review period ended today. The El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee reviewed that project on September 4th. There was probably 30 people here, maybe 35 people in this room. It was well received. There was a couple of significant questions, but for the most part, the comments were positive in terms of the outreach that occurred and the adjacent neighbors liking the project from the standpoint that they thought it would be an economic benefit and an attribute to their community. So that one's moving forward through our planning process. It's expected right now to go to the Planning Commission sometime. It's either late October, early November. I think it's late October, and then to the Board of Supervisors in early December. So that one looks like the mini projects. That one looks like it has a chance of being heard and decided upon before the end of the calendar year. Moving on to AKT, there's nothing new to report there. I did have a brief conversation with one of their representatives, and they're doing a lot of work to kind of replan that project, consistent with the fact that the El Dorado County opening of the property for development will probably occur much earlier than the Sacramento County side. As the city of Folsom and Sacramento County did not indicate an interest in moving forward in the near term on that project. So we'll have to wait and see what they present. Generations of Green Valley Road. The review period ended August 27th, and after being extended 15 days, which was requested by the public. And I checked last week to determine if the Planning Commission had a hearing date on it yet. They do not. But my expectation is that would probably be sometime towards the latter part of November, early December, but we'll have to wait and see. Business Park, Gateway Project. In fact, we put that out there several times as available. The zoning administrator hearing was conducted on September 4th for the Carson Creek RP project, and approval was granted to create 16 new parcels from the 4 existing parcels. So that's moving forward. There's a total of 64.22 parcels on that particular project. And again, you can get a lot more information on the Planning and Building website. The county's current focus from our planning and building staff's perspective is the interim community objectives design standards. And we have a joint workshop planned with the Planning Commission to be held on the 17th. So a little over a week away. So if you're interested in being involved with that, I would encourage you to attend that meeting and or submit your comments. 5-year general plan is the current focus for a lot of activities, but it's been deferred with everything going on out to probably the first half of 2026. And then one recent one that didn't get on here, Bridging Divides is holding a community conversation on the future of El Dorado Hills. And I think Cindy distributed copies of the meeting. I have talked to Steve about it. I'm planning on attending. I hope you're planning on attending. It does require an RSVP. And it's held at the Mohana Ranch on September 24th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. And their keynote speaker is a gentleman by the name of Rich Hammond. And like I said, the RSVPs are encouraged so they know how many people to count on. So if you don't have that information, we can certainly provide it. I think we put it out on our social media, right? So it's posted on our social media, which means you should be able to find it on the website.
What's the date, Supervisor?
September 24th. Trying to get to that a Thursday.
There's sheets in fact.
Okay.
I'll add them on the minutes too.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the date of the calendar. Was that a Thursday, September 24th? Let's see. No, it's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday, September 24th, starts at 5:30 and runs until 8. We'll make sure you get a copy of it, David.
Perfect.
So the
Thank you.
invite. And that's all I had on supervisor updates. Did George join us? I haven't seen him. Okay, so we don't have a District 2 report, I guess, tonight. So any questions on any of that? All right, we'll move on. Leadership and team progress reports. And we always start with safety and our health and safety aspects of things. So since we have a CHP officer here this evening, and I forget your name, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
but
no worries. Sergeant Adam Croxton.
Sergeant Adam Croxton. Thank you, Adam. So if you please share with us in Officer Brown's absence, I guess he's enjoying himself a little bit.
Yes.
Well
Recently
deserved.
back from a little vacation.
Okay, all right.
Well deserved vacation. So
Yes.
thank you for the invite. Appreciate it. Appreciate you looping us in as always. Like I said, Sergeant Adam Croxton representing the California Highway Patrol Placerville office. Don't have a whole lot of information to share with you all this evening. Just wanted to give you a couple updates that's on our radar that we're looking at. Maybe some of you have seen our motorcycle around and about.
Yes.
New again to the Placerville area. We just have the one out there right now, but the need has presented itself in the western side of our region, which is El Dorado Hills. So I've mainly been deploying him in this region, so that's why you've probably seen him around. On the freeways, also on all the unincorporated roads in the area. So he's on cloud 9 right now. He got a new BMW today. Brand new, had 3 miles on it. So
I saw him this morning.
he's a happy camper.
He had a friend.
Yes, he did have a friend this morning.
Cool. Yeah.
So he's out and about doing what we do, enforcing the vehicle codes and keeping the public as safe as we possibly can. We've been busy. We had a holiday weekend last weekend, our maximum enforcement period. Very successful. We deployed a number of officers during all of our shifts, made a number of DUI arrests, and took some people that had too much to drink to jail. And hopefully that process is working the way it should. We also had some events over the weekend. I don't know if you saw up on Highway 50 up in the Camino area. There was an incident I can't speak too much in detail about, but there was an arrest made and it's being investigated as a homicide. So hopefully that traffic, the road closure didn't impact too much traffic going up to Tahoe. But we had our investigators from our Valley Division come up and assist us with that investigation. So that's ongoing, and he was booked into the El Dorado County Jail. Couple other things I can think of real quick. I just wanted to touch on our staffing levels are good in the Placerville area, which there's not too many CHP areas in the state that can say that. So please don't let that information leave this meeting.
They'll be stolen. Yeah.
But we're grateful for it. It's a good opportunity to be able to do some things we haven't been able to do in a while. Kind of get creative, outside the box, proactive enforcement, which is good. It's a great benefit to the community for sure. With that being said, even though our staffing levels look good, we still lean on the public, lean on the citizens for help. And what I mean by that is, we can't be in every nook and cranny of the county every day, but you all are. So if you see something, ongoing vehicle violations, something that you could bring to our attention, please do that. Please call our Placerville office. We fill out a traffic complaint form, and then we'll saturate those areas and try to correct those issues from potentially being something more serious. So one other thing to that point, if you see impaired drivers on the roadway, a lot of times it's interesting to me how many times I talk to people that say they see impaired drivers on the roadway and are confused on what to do about that. Meaning they don't want to use the 911 system because they go, this is not an exigent emergency. And so they end up not calling it or whatever. Please use our 911 system for that. That's exactly what it's for. That is an emergency. And if we're in the area and we're in a place we can respond and make a stop on that driver and go through our DUI evaluation, that's what we do. So please utilize that service. And that's all I have.
One quick question. How did school reopening go? Because that was Solo Valley Parkway is always a difficult thing.
Yeah, it's a
School
fun one.
reopens and everybody's rushing to try to get their kids there, and it creates a lot of havoc. So
It does. And it was chaos. It was controlled chaos. We deployed our senior volunteer program all throughout the county, which was awesome. They visited more than 30 schools in the county and really tried to show presence and keep the kiddos safe. So it was a huge success.
good question.
Any questions from anybody on the leadership team?
How are you working with the sheriff's department?
Yeah.
Working great with the sheriff's department. Yeah. Yeah, we just had our executive management here at the local level, just had some meetings with them this week. Just to make sure we're on the same page with a number of different items, which we were, as we thought we were. And rural areas, we work hand in hand with all our allied agencies so well, which is really important. So yeah, good question. But we love the support.
And I can attest to that. I've seen very good collaborative efforts between our sheriff's department, local CHP, and even to a certain extent with Placerville Police Department. I mean, there's still friction there, but you know, law enforcement needs to work together if they're going to be effective, right? And so I think they're all trying harder. So very good.
Don't worry, Supervisor, they may contract for sheriff's services in the future.
That's true too. So, well, thank you, Sergeant. I appreciate that. Let's move on. We don't have a sheriff's deputy here with us, right? So, all right, so we'll move on to fire, one of our important community attributes, right? Fire protection.
I love fire, right? Everybody claps.
No, so I wanted to give you kind of an overview, a little bit of the Crozier fire, since that was a big incident we had in the county. But before I get there, we've had a lot of really complicated fires this year in El Dorado County. And even though the fires are occurring up in Placerville and in Mosquito and in other areas of the county, the El Dorado Hills firefighters are stripping our engines and sending them up there. So when an emergency happens, we send everybody to the emergency and we backfill with other resources coming in. So even though this is a District 1 focused meeting, the impacts of a big fire, let's say the one near the Placerville Airport or out in Mosquito, the El Dorado Hills fire engines are going up there immediately, along with all of our law enforcement partners. And the sergeant here is an expert on evacuations. I learned he's on a Type 1 incident management team doing law enforcement liaison work and evacuation specialist. So we partner together, fire, law, CHP, and we call mutual aid from out of the area to come in and help. So it's been an interesting year. We've had a lot of, you've heard of the term one way in and one way out communities or limited access communities. So this year has been the test of the limited access communities. We had a fire in Oak Hill, deep in Oak Hill, back on a one way in, one way out road called the Moccasin Fire. Then we had the Pay Fire, which had better access, but was very complicated, very hot. And then we had the Crozier Fire up in the town of Mosquito, which was very complicated with access. Has anybody been up Rock Creek Road or across the Mosquito Bridge? If you haven't, I have a picture in here to show you, but picture a very, very difficult community to get to with a lot of fire risk. So I just wanted to give you a feel for, I'll skip that one in interest of time, but I want to give you a feel for the Crozier Fire, some pictures and some things like that for you to see. But ironically, Mosquito, again, is one of the more difficult, dangerous communities we have. On July 25th, we had done an evacuation town hall up there, and Officer Brown was up there from CHP, and we had CAL FIRE and the Forest Service and EDSO, and I work full-time in EDSO. I'm a deputy chief here with El Dorado Hills Fire. I'm assigned full-time to OES, which is managed by the El Dorado County Sheriff under a contract. So I kind of split my time, but we had done this really cool town hall up in Mosquito because we recognized the threat. And that was on the 25th. And about 6 or 7 days later, we ended up having the fire in Mosquito, and all the same people that were at this town hall, ironically, were the first arriving people up in Mosquito. So it made for a really interesting experience because we had
How it's real, right?
prepped the community. And from that meeting, we were working on a plan using the airport up in Mosquito as a refuge area to hold people in because there's an access problem. So ironically, while we were there that night, we pulled out our draft plan and we started seeing if it was going to work. And it ended up working pretty well. A few tweaks we'll make, but we tested it in real life. But so August 6th was the Crozier Fire up in Mosquito. Really started out, and you don't have to worry about all the words on here, 2 separate incidents. We went about 8 o'clock in the evening to a fire up in Mosquito in the forest, kind of above town. And we found a small 100 by 100 foot vegetation fire. While we were up there, we weren't real comfortable that there wasn't something else going on. Everyone had a feeling they were seeing smoke. There's these cameras that are available if you Google alert wildfire cameras. We're thinking we see smoke, but in any case, we did a lot of searching. We did a 2-mile search with a drone, didn't see anything. So we didn't feel great. So OES at the California state level has an aircraft that's an intelligence aircraft. It does all kinds of imagery of the ground using infrared. It uses all kinds of technology. So we were able to request that free for services through mutual aid. We made a request to have this aircraft fly the fire. About 45 minutes later, they called us and said, we found a fire 3 miles from where you guys were, deeper in the forest above Mosquito. So we all went back. we were kind of waiting for them to be there. We were hanging around in the area. We all went back up, and that picture there on the screen on the right was what we saw, and that was about 11 p.m. When that picture started. So we had a small fire that was in a very difficult to get to area. We couldn't get fire engines there. There wasn't good access by ground. It was dark, and there was pretty good winds going. So this became a complicated incident for us right away. And here's some of the early pictures you see of what it looked like at night, right as this fire started up in Mosquito. So you had extreme fire activity, which isn't typical of the late middle of the night, almost midnight hour. Fire crowning through the trees. It was very hot and dry, which, as you all know, July, one of the hottest months on record. They're talking that summer this year will be one of the hottest on record, with number of days over 100 degrees or near 100 degrees. So pretty interesting start to this incident. This is a picture of what types of intelligence we're getting sent to us now. So the fire service world, like everything, the technology is helping us. So we have airplanes flying over, and on my phone, I can pull these visuals up as well as every other firefighter out there. And it really allows us to figure out where the fire's at, how we can get to it, and what direction it's traveling. So this is OES aircraft giving us intelligence photos, like literally live streaming this kind of stuff. Really great technology they were using. And it helps us figure out how to get to some of these difficult spots or determine where the fire's going. Hopefully this video will play. It should. So this is just a picture. It's a little slow, unfortunately, on the connection, but of some of the fire activity your firefighters are seeing on the ground. You can see fire above the tree lines, blowing past them, wind driven. This is kind of what the roads look like out in the forest out there, heavily overgrown, lots of big trees, and just lots of fuel available to burn. So just an interesting photo to see. That is what your firefighters are working with when they're out there trying to put in control lines on the edge of the fire called the flank. So you see that. Let's see, there we go. Okay, just some other photos of what the fire was like, looking at some of the different cameras and some of the different pictures. The picture on the far right is our view from El Dorado Hills from the top of Ridge View looking up towards Mosquito. So just large columns of smoke up in the air, and a lot of energy in that smoke coming from these fires. Again, just more pictures of the fires and where they were going. Here's a cool picture again at night, and this is one of the hand crews taking refuge in the middle as the fire was overrunning them. They got to what we call a safety zone, which is an area that firefighters can hang out in while the fire is blowing past them. Even though they can't get out, it's an area of safety. And this was a hand crew that got trapped. They didn't get hurt. They were fine, but they got trapped in an area they couldn't get out of. And so you have this pretty interesting view. And what you can't hear because the audio is not working is this guy is actually praying that they make it through it. Pretty interesting. And you can see the fire just disintegrating these giant trees. So kind of a picture. This is the law branch. So in the piece of evacuation, so knowing Mosquito was a community that had limited access, we made a decision to evacuate the entire town right off the bat. So a lot of mutual aid law enforcement was called in. You have the fire and the law working together, deciding how big of an evacuation zone they want to create and pushing out those alert warnings right from the scene. We're using a product called Perimeter software that I've talked about here before, and I've shown you all pictures of it before. Perimeter is that public-facing tool we use that you could see, anybody out there can see what is going on with an evacuation. There were 1.4 million people that viewed the Perimeter software during the course of this fire, so pretty interesting. The pictures on the right, that's Rock Creek Road on the top, very narrow road. You can't get a fire engine up that road and people evacuating down the road to get out of the community. So that was one of our big challenges, was just access. And then on the other side, the other access to Mosquito is across this, one of the oldest wood swinging bridges that exist. And if you take a pickup truck across that, your mirrors are scraping the sky. So no fire engines are going across it. It creaks and cracks if you have your windows down. You've been on it. It's actually pretty cool. In about a year and a half or 2 years, there'll be a new bridge going over the top of this bridge here. And I think you're going to have a lot of this fire safety concerns as far as access and egress kind of will be a lot better, but that's going to be a couple years from now. So that's a picture of the Perimeter software. This is at the height of the evacuations. Everything in red are people that were forced to leave their homes under an evacuation order. Everything in yellow was what was called an evacuation warning, and the green lines are evacuation routes on how to get out. So what you see is this fire went all the way, as far as the evacuation perspective, to the Placer County line, which is 4 or 5 or 6 miles from where the fire started. There was a lot of discussion about that. That was a big move to make. But people in Georgetown in the upper left corner had fires starting from the embers and the smoke being carried 4 miles down. and we had spot fires in Georgetown. So the decision was made, it was just too dangerous. And again, Volcanoville and all these areas, very difficult to evacuate, so it needs a lot of time. So we decided to evacuate them. And we decided that it was better to have people upset with you that you pushed them out of their homes and be a little frustrated than it was to wait too long and not be able to get them out of their homes. So not everyone always enjoys that, of course, because it's such an inconvenience, but that was the decision. There were several levels of incident management that occurred. There's a local team called the Sacramento Regional Incident Management Team that came up to help us, and then eventually it transited to a very sophisticated incident management team called a Type 1 team, same as the sergeant's on, and in this case, it was Team 5 from CAL FIRE, which is a very technically talented command team of somewhere around 90 people that show up and help just put the management in place. So a very big operation, and one of the coolest things about this is on the right, you see the video playing. That's Captain Linsing from the Sheriff's Office. This is the first time for EDSO that they went unified command with the incident, and we're actually now making some of the decisions. So it's really, from my perspective, was a really great thing, because now you have your firefighters, your CAL FIRE, your local fire, and you have your sheriff all in unified command. And what that means is they're making decisions on what happens. They're not accepting what other people are doing. They're part of the decision-making process. So it was a great thing. I talked about Perimeter having a lot of views on it. That was a very big success. And then lastly, before I close this out, if you aren't signed up to get our alerts through RAVE, the El Dorado County Emergency Alerts, please see me and I'll help you get signed up. We want you all to be getting those alerts in case there is an emergency. We can get a hold of you and your phones and your families. With that, I can take any questions you have.
Questions? Yeah. Dave?
Thank you for that presentation. That's fantastic. I'd hate to be on the other side of that bridge. I understand that with the heightened fire awareness and insurance companies canceling folks in El Dorado Hills on the western slope, that a lot of people are doing clearings around their houses to have a defensible space. And a lot of fire departments are coming out and doing inspections for free. But in El Dorado Hills, they want to charge like a $500 fee or fine to come out and do an inspection. How does that work?
So there's a couple different levels of inspections that are occurring. Each year, the El Dorado Hills Fire Department has an unimproved property ordinance, a vacant lot ordinance that we inspect. We go out to all the vacant and unimproved lots with no houses on them throughout the community. We inspect them for our compliance expectations of, depending on where you're at, it's 100 feet from your neighbor or 20 feet off the roadways, depending on your lot and how it's situated and its size. So those inspections are occurring. There's no charge to those unless the person is non-compliant. So a non-compliant lot, then we would go back and re-inspect, and eventually we would do the abatement and lien the property. So that's one inspection. Then under state law, under Title 14, there's something called the 100-foot defensible space. That's not its technical term, it's 4291. But the inspection essentially requires 100 foot of defensible space to give you that protection and make sure you're safe around your house. So those inspections are occurring countywide. There's a county group or department called OWAPR, the Office of Wildfire Resilience and Protection, and they are focusing on all types of wildfire resilience, including defensible space inspections. Those are occurring as well. We don't and haven't found anybody through that process, to my knowledge. It's all been education and compliance. Then there's something that California state law enacted that has to do with real estate transactions. So California state law, because of the campfire where everyone died trying to get out of paradise and all the dramatic there, is every time a property changes ownership through a real estate transaction, there's now by law, by state law, a requirement to do an inspection to ensure compliance with defensible space. I think that's the one you're talking about.
That's the $500.
That's where the fee. So there's different agencies charge different fees. So if you get an El Dorado Hills fire inspection, our fee is going to be based off of a study that we did of our employee costs and administrative costs, and we're going to have a fee associated with an inspection. That's what I'm thinking you're referencing there.
Okay, so
The
it's
other
not
ones are
that
free.
our fire department in our district is charging this fee because they want
Well,
the
they are for
revenue
real
or
On real
whatever.
estate
It's
transactions, we
state
are.
implied law that is forcing this at a real estate transaction. Is that true?
So the expense one I believe you're speaking of is probably the real estate transactions, because we are charging that transaction money to send our inspectors out there. But the vacant lots, and unless you're non-compliant, and the 100-foot defensible space stuff is you're not getting charged.
Oh, thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
That's really important. That's huge.
Any other questions or comments? I just have one comment. The Board of Supervisors had a presentation by Mark Egbert
Okay.
And Mark is part of the El Dorado County Resource Conservation District, and Georgetown has a resource conservation. But they came to the Board of Supervisors and basically shared with us the grant monies that they have and those kinds of things. And they made a request for additional funding to be able to level load their workforce so that they weren't losing people at the end of their work cycle. Basically, they could continue to do things. It ended up being a 3-2 vote, but the Board of Supervisors approved, I think it was another $400,000, one time only in this calendar year, to try to address more and more of the forest fire hazard reduction by thinning out the fuels, removing the fuels. And we've got various maps and stuff that tell us fire index severities, et cetera. So that's what the Resource Conservation District is focusing on. And they have a lot of equipment and staff to do that. But in order to keep them in a regular routine of being able to continue their great efforts, it took some additional money. And 3 of the 5 supervisors decided, yeah, that needed to happen because everybody's paying the high cost of home insurance, fire insurance, to the point that $400,000 is a minimal investment if it means, 100 or 1,000 or whatever people can actually get insurance, and maybe their premium over time is going to be lower. So I looked at it as a return on investment. Money's tied at the county, but I felt it was something we just needed to move forward with. So we did. And I think OES, the operations with the county OES recognizes those kinds of things. So again, it's a collaborative effort by all the agencies involved, and where you have choices to make, you try to make those tough choices. But right now, fire protection is really important in California.
I think the Board of Soups over the last, 4 to 6 years has really made a giant investment in trying to help with the wildfire risk reduction by building the OWAPR division, the Office of Wildfire Resilience. Its staff, they're out getting grants. They've got some sizable grants coming that'll do fuel modifications, the commitment to inspections. It's all pieces of the insurance problem. Everyone's being impacted in our community. We get people calling us weekly that are getting canceled or dropped. My mom and dad, who live in Serrano in a very benign house as far as my perspective of risk, I mean, their price went up to $5,000 for like a 2,000 square foot house in Serrano, not in the super area, just like in regular old Serrano. You're talking a small lot. It was very interesting just to see the dangers. I live right up the street. I got dropped on my insurance, and I live like less than a mile from here. And so it's everybody struggling with insurance. It's a giant impact on our residents throughout the foothills in California, but especially, we're seeing it here. So we do need to all be committed to trying to solve that problem. And I think our Board of Supervisors, through their leadership, has in their investments. I think you're seeing the leadership throughout California on the fire service trying. I know there's discussions that are very political at the state level that hopefully they're working in a direction for us all to get some kind of relief in this area at some point here.
The added commentary, appreciate that. So thank you for the safe and healthy community. Oh, you were going to report.
Kathy, yes.
Yes.
Kathy Guerrero wasn't feeling well, so she sent us an email on what her report was going to be. First was on community hubs. They're currently experiencing turnover at the Hub 1, which is our El Dorado Hills hub in the El Dorado Hills Library. One of their navigators, Missy, has taken an exciting new position pursuing her dream of teaching. And Jacqueline, she's out on medical leave. So they just have one. Savannah, she continues to support the community members at the hub. Since July 1st, the hub has served 33 individuals. Of those served, 4 did not have shelter, 15 had Medi-Cal coverage, and 6 had Medicare coverage. 13 had a variety of unmet needs ranging from housing, food, healthcare, clothing, childcare, and utility assistance. And most of the engagements came from a community event or through their library programs. That's how they ended up at the hubs. Regarding the first 5 El Dorado Commission, they've completed their 2024 Community Needs Assessment, and they prioritize 6 issues for the upcoming strategic plan. Early prenatal care, prenatal substance use, immunizations, adverse childhood experiences, child care availability, and transitional kindergarten attendance. And a draft strategic plan will be presented at their January commission meeting. And finally, the Commission for Youth and Families is holding community engagement sessions. These sessions are designed to get feedback on important services in our community and are held virtually, and participants are compensated for their expertise. The fall sessions will engage families with children 0 to 5 years, and for more information, contact Deanna Santana, and I'll include all this information and her contact information in the notes, the
minutes?
The minutes from that meeting today.
Okay, very good. Moving on. Sophia, do you want to give us your youth? Because I know you've got other things to do, so please, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Since it's only been like the first month of school, there isn't like a ton that I can update you all on. There's a little bit at Oak Ridge and a little bit on the Youth Commission. At Oak Ridge, we had our Welcome Back Week, and we had decorations and a rally and a dance just to welcome all our students back to school. Last week we had Club Day, and 65 different clubs were able to have a booth and share what their club does to the rest of the school. And it really connects students to so many opportunities at school and in the community, like Interact or Hands for Hope and all those kinds of clubs that are really important. And so there was a lot of signups from students around the school. We also had Link Crew leaders helping freshmen get adjusted to Oak Ridge through certain activities to help them learn skills that'll help them throughout their high school experience. Once a month, they meet in the large gym with their Link Crew leaders, and so every freshman has a Link Crew leader, and they can ask for advice, and we kind of teach them certain skills that'll be helpful, like time management, to help them succeed in high school. We also have homecoming coming up. We picked our theme, A Night in the City, and tickets are going on sale next week. So we're expecting a very large turnout. Last year was the most attended dance that we've ever had. So we're looking forward to a lot of people showing up to that. And then on Youth Commission, we've recently picked our new commissioners, so we're excited to get started on our new focus, which is shifting, while still under mental health. We're going to be branching out into mental health awareness and substance abuse and addiction. And so that's really what we're looking forward to doing this year within youth and trying to spread awareness about youth mental health. We also are still following up with our peer advocacy program that we've created. Now has one peer advocacy program at every school, high school in the district, and we're currently looking to expand to the rest of the county. But if you're not familiar, we're basically training certain upperclassmen in a variety of skills to be able to talk to their underclassmen who may need assistance with mental health and other resources. And we're basically diverting them to resources that can help them, because we found that more students are likely to talk to another peer versus an adult. And so we're able to give them those resources that they need. Thank you.
Excellent program. Past history, so great report. David, I know CD hasn't gotten kicked off yet, but we're getting close. So why don't you share your thoughts on that? Yeah.
So the county staff has been working really hard in procuring a contractor to create a new updated comprehensive economic development strategy for the county of El Dorado. And in that process, the Board of Supervisors has come up with a new and very narrow and focused direction for a strategic economic development plan. And so they're looking to appoint 7 community members, all with a specialty in different area, from small business to medical devices to affordable housing to job generation and business attraction. I have applied or reapplied. I served on the past committee, and we are encouraging you and the 24,000 listeners tonight to also apply and send their application in to the Board of Supervisors, and they will act on this on September 17th. So we'll have more information for you at the next meeting.
Thank you. I think the last time I had heard we had 10 applications, so hopefully that number is probably increasing. And there were a couple of selected areas that needed some additional encouragement, I guess, to get representation, so we have a balanced portfolio of people and subject matter expertise. So that's one of the things that delayed us here about a week, but hopefully we're converging on that very quickly. So thank you for that report. So Cindy, why don't you go ahead and
Me again.
give yours? Yeah.
El Dorado Hills happenings. The El Dorado Hills Farmers Market is continuing every Sunday now. It's year round, and I heard a bunch of people very excited yesterday to go and get all the goodies they have there. And I heard that there's a lot of really neat produce and things out there. So That's every Sunday from 9 to 1 at Town Center behind Nibblers in the Trek bicycle area. And new is at the Theater Plaza in Town Center. They're going to have theater starting September 12th. Theater Plaza Thursday live music. They used to have it during the summer. It's down by the restaurants, but this one's over by the theater. So it's by the Town Center Theater Plaza, and they're going to have music, and you can bring your own chairs, and they have all those chairs out there. That's from 6:30 to 8:30. On September 14th, the Dorado Hills CSD is having their big end of the year summer fest. It's from 4 to 9:30 at the big CSD park. They're having the theme is folklore and fairy tales, and they said that, you know, all the kids can come dressed as their favorite characters. They're going to have a DJ, live music, carnival games, rides, face painting, petting zoo, beer and wine gardens, food and dessert vendors. There's all kinds of stuff. So it's a really neat event for the end of the summer there at the CSD. And the CSD is continuing the yoga in the park this time. It's on September 15th at 10 in the morning. It's the new Saratoga Park, which is very popular. Every time I drive by there, it's packed. It's just a family-friendly introduction to yoga, and it's co-sponsored with a partnership with Yoga 6, the new yoga studio. And on September 28th, it will be the 4th annual kids. It's called a triathlon, a TRY-athlon. It's a swim, bike, run, and roll. It's a limited of 50 kids. It's for kids with disabilities of any age and their siblings up to 13 years old. And they are invited to participate in the adaptive swim, bike, and run event. You know, that's been very successful in the last 3 years. And then finally, October 5th is going to be a community cleanup day. So if you want to clean out your garage and get your stuff taken away there, you go to it's from 8 to 2, and that's at the Hills Church. That's what I got.
Okay, moving through the rest of them here fairly quickly. Public infrastructure, there's really nothing new there. Workforce excellent, nothing new. Strategic innovation, there have been meetings held, and they decided, the leadership team has decided they're going to do an all-employee survey. So we'll look forward to seeing what that results in relative to innovation. But yeah, I think that's kind of a good approach. So we'll see what happens with it. Relative to area planning advisory committees, we mentioned John Davey couldn't be here this evening. They did have their meeting ahead of ours this month, September 4th. Their next meeting is October 9th of this year. And the primary focus at their September 4th meeting was the Town and Country Village presentation. We discussed that a little bit. So if you want to go back and hear more about that particular project, APAC records their meetings, their Zoom meetings, and they're recorded. So if you wanted to hear the presentations, the discussions on that particular project, that would probably be the easiest place to access it.
I'll put a link in the minutes too.
Right. And our El Dorado Hills District 2 community representative, John Rasler, resigned. So I think George is looking for a replacement for that. So we don't have a report from District 2 this evening. So I'm going to move on to item 7, council member items. Our next meeting is October 7th, right back here at 5 p.m. And it's my pleasure to announce that our guest speaker, well, 2 guest speakers, Bill O'Neill, who is retiring as the registrar of voters, and Linda Webster, who has been chosen to succeed Bill by the Board of Supervisors. And they'll be sharing their preparedness for the upcoming election on November 5th. They had an open house and a lot of people came up and asked questions, and I think that was very, very successful. But Bill told me that the local mailing of ballots within El Dorado County will begin on October 7th. So that's the other thing you'll be able to announce. Look in the mail soon for your ballot to arrive. And then the leadership transition, the handoff from Bill to Linda, they're also going to cover that a little bit. So something to look forward to. And that's always been one of the big questions is voter fraud and security. And I think El Dorado County goes way out of its way to demonstrate to the public that we have very secure voting provisions and observation areas. If you want to go see the votes actually counted, you have the ability to do that through windows and through cameras and stuff. So we are very transparent, very active, but very controlled in the way that we do our vote counting. So With that, unless there's any go backs for anybody? All right, we adjourned at 6:45, less than 6:45, 6:40. That's pretty good. So thank you all for your attendance, and appreciate all the inputs and comments. That's what makes this work, is sharing communication. So appreciate it.